While searching for the stories we present on this show, we've come across several amazing inventions. Inventions without which lives would have been needlessly lost. We call them miracles of modern technology, and we'll be featuring several of them in the weeks to come. Our first comes into play in a particularly harrowing yet familiar tragedy. A young child, an innocent curiosity, and a deep, abandoned well. On February 15, 1993, 2-year-old Javier Gonzalez was playing with his younger cousin in a field near his home in Visalia, California, when the two youngsters became intrigued by what looked like a bucket in the ground. What little Javier didn't know was that the bucket was covering an abandoned well and that it was never meant to hold the weight of a child. As Javier stomped on the rusted-out bottom of the bucket, it gave way, sending him plummeting into the depths of the well. Luckily, his cousin knew enough to run for help. Minutes later, a 911 emergency call was received by the Visalia Fire Department, where fireman Dwayne Anthony was on duty that day.
We dispatched an engine out, and we were all thinking, okay, well, kid fell in a hole, nothing big, we're gonna go and pull him out. And then while I'm en route, then it became known that, yes, the child had fallen in a well. This is one of those that you hope you never have to happen in your lifetime, and we were faced with it.
Fireman Mike Sandry was the first to arrive on the scene.
Walked over to this well casing, looked down inside it, I heard a child crying, and I could look down with the flashlight and saw there's a black head about 25 feet down. And the thought came to myself, we got a serious situation right here.
With no time to spare, the rescue unit devised a plan. The child was only 25 feet down the well, but they knew it was much deeper. A nearby well was over 100 feet deep.
We started requesting more and more equipment. It was about 1:30 in the afternoon, daylight in February, the days are gonna get shorter, it's gonna get colder pretty soon, and we were prepared for the worst.
Metal tubing was rushed to the site to pump oxygen through a hose into the well, and a special webbing would be used as a lifeline to the boy. The plan was to lower the webbing into the well and coax the 2-year-old to put his hand through the hangman's noose. When it's tightened, they would lift him to safety, but there were concerns.
Once we start pulling, is the hanging noose going to give way and his little hand slip out of it and fall deeper down into the well?
These concerns opened the way for the use of another piece of equipment, a well camera.
It was my idea to come up with the well camera because I have an agricultural background and I've seen the well cameras in use.
The state-of-the-art video camera is hydraulically lowered into existing wells to search for water levels, rust, and breaks. Today, it would be used to attempt to save a life. Randy Whitman was the owner-operator.
My brother and I were on a job location, and we got the call from our dispatcher that a kid had fallen in a well in Visalia. I was just hoping that he was alive and that we weren't going to find a dead child there.
As the camera was slowly lowered into the 10-inch wide well casing, everyone waited, not knowing what condition the boy was in. Was the child still caught at the 25-foot level? What was holding him there? And if the camera forced him to move, would he fall deeper down the shaft? These were questions that everyone involved was asking. The conclusion, when It's a Miracle continues. While playing near an abandoned well, 2-year-old Javier Gonzalez climbed into the metal bucket covering it. And when the rusted bottom caved in, he fell 25 feet underground. Firefighters on the scene quickly devised a plan to save the boy, but the dangerous situation required the use of a special piece of modern technology, a well camera. As the camera was lowered into the well, no one knew for sure what they would find.
It was kind of scary. We didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know if he was upside down, or if he's in water.
But when the camera finally reached 25 feet, they could see he was alive and struggling in the well. It was now up to fireman George Sandoval to give the boy instructions in Spanish.
My concern was he was going to pick up on my fears. And so just try to tell him that, hey, everything was going to be all right, and just kind of relax.
The firemen continued to shout instructions down the well to him. They wanted him to move his hands above his head and to see what type of mobility he had, and then we would watch him inside the van on the monitor.
But it was impossible to see whether he'd put his hand through the noose or not.
For the longest time there, we couldn't tell if he was just holding onto it with his hand or had he actually put his arm through it.
And then a chance movement gave them their answer.
For some reason, he happened to raise his arm up. When he raised his arm up above the head, we seen he had the straps tied around his arms, and they were secure on his arm. The decision was made to start pulling him up.
With the rescue in its 5th hour, Javier's stamina wasn't holding up. His 2-year-old body was slipping in and out of consciousness.
When he went into like an unconscious state is when I gave the order to go ahead and start pulling up, because I figured that that was going to be the most relaxed he was going to be.
Fireman Mike Sandry slowly and cautiously pulled the webbing attached to Javier under the guidance of Randy Whitman.
We would come up 2 feet or so with the camera and stop, and then they would pull him up. We'd make sure that the strap was still on his arm.
That well camera helped me, so if I started pulling too much and started having that hangman's noose or webbing slip off, I would know. So they kind of just guided me in pulling this child out of the well.
He kept sliding, and I kept assuring him, just stay relaxed, don't, just stay still, just relax, and he did. And he continued to come on up.
There were just a few feet left to go.
With the help of the well camera, bringing him up, that eased my stomach and eased the nerves a little bit until the minute I grabbed him, then I knew this incident was over. Got him up, I held him like he was my child, held him tightly, and then I handed him off to the paramedics.
It was a big community victory. It was just a big celebration, I guess, if you will.
That was probably the best feeling in the world, is to know something went right. Because so many times these just don't go right.
When you have kids about this age, you just get, I don't want to.
When it was over with, I just started to bawl because the stress was just so tremendous on me, knowing that this incident could have gone the other way and Javier wouldn't be with us today.